afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayor Taravier for the City of Red Deer. Pleased to be joined by my colleagues and our city administration today. Good afternoon to my fellow Red Deerians, our fellow Albertans, and to members of the media. I'm joined today virtually by Mayor Scott of the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, Mayor Spearman of the City of Lethbridge, and Mayor Nenshi of the City of Calgary. We would like to go on public record that we stand in solidarity against the Minister of Health's decision to consolidate emergency medical services dispatch. We would like to go on public record that we strongly oppose this irresponsible decision. Late Friday afternoon, Minister Shandro issued a letter indicating that he will not be overturning AHS's decision to consolidate ambulance dispatch. On behalf of our cities and regions, as mayors, we remain absolutely resolute in our position that this decision on the part of the Minister of Health compromises the health and safety, not just for the 43% of Albertans that we collectively represent, but all Albertans. Without municipal integrated dispatch centers, existing AHS dispatch centers will see an increase of approximately 200,000 calls per year, resulting in even slower emergency dispatch service to every Albertan. As a province, we have all invested the past 8 months as Albertans trying to protect capacity in our healthcare system. And now Alberta Health somehow thinks it is in order to upload 200,000 emergency calls from a total of 7 dispatch centers in our province to only 3 centers remaining for our entire province. Let it be known that additional delays will occur as the AHS Emergency Communications Center dispatches slower than their own 90-second standard for emergency ambulance dispatch. Again, AHS in their 3 centers are not even meeting their own standard. We know that the longer that it takes for an ambulance to be dispatched, the worse it is for patient outcomes, especially in life and death circumstances where seconds are absolutely critical. For example, in Red Deer's Emergency Communications Center, we dispatch emergency ambulance service in 65 seconds on average, which is 18 to 21 seconds faster than Alberta Health Services. The Minister of Health cannot, in good faith, claim improved public health outcomes when there is a degradation of service for our local citizens. The numbers and the data are very clear. Consolidated EMS dispatch under Alberta Health Services is slower, it risks calls being dropped, and will result in emergency vehicles being delayed. All of this irresponsibly puts the lives of Albertans at unnecessary risk in moments where seconds count. Furthermore, Red Deer's current model of integrated fire and emergency ambulance service is regarded not just nationally, but internationally for its efficiency and, most importantly, its patient-first approach. All of our firefighters and paramedics are fire medics, meaning that they are dually trained to provide fire, rescue, and advanced life support emergency response. Under the consolidated AHS model, fire would not be dispatched immediately to an emergency or even at all. Without the coordination between fire and EMS, there will be delay in care for patients. In 2019, in Red Deer alone, the Advanced Life Support Fire Unit arrived first on scene 40% of the time. Just this past Thanksgiving, a fire unit, an advanced life support fire unit, waited 4 minutes for an ambulance to arrive. Without the coordination of dispatch, under the AHS model, that patient would have waited an extra 4 minutes without emergency medical care. And this is just one example of many, many examples that our frontline staff have shared with us, and one of many examples that we shared with the Minister of Health. We now appeal to the Premier to listen to our local concerns, to review the facts, and to keep dispatch local. The Premier has on prior occasion gone on public record with municipalities, indicating that he would work with our cities to ensure effective delivery of local services. Keeping the current integrated municipal dispatch model, it reduces red tape, it saves money, but most importantly, and above every other reason, it saves lives by delivering emergency ambulance care faster than what AHS can provide alone. Minister Shandro's decision to override local concerns and not intervene is perhaps one of the single most impactful and egregious decisions that I have witnessed in my 16 years in local government. Citizen safety is our top priority, and I want to be clear. There will be a degradation of EMS services as other Alberta communities have experienced under the consolidated Alberta Health Services model. There will be a degradation of emergency services, not just in Red Deer and region or Lethbridge and region or Wood Buffalo and region or in the city of Calgary, but throughout our province. The minister based this decision on a recommendation from an outdated, antiquated 11-year-old plan without considering new information and disregarding the facts presented to him by our 4 communities and regions. There is very good reason that 4 former health ministers serving under different governments prior to Minister Shandro stopped this reckless and dangerous decision once they were presented with the local facts. Our initial response to Minister Shandro's letter, in which he selectively responded to only some of the points that we made during our very thorough presentation, was that it was a very thorough pat on the head. Our concerns are valid, and we have endeavored to engage with the province in good faith. Minister Shandro's response has failed to address our very legitimate concerns in the safety interests of our citizens. Community friends and fellow Albertans, this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue of life and death. Before I pass to my colleagues, I would like to conclude by sounding the alarm for all my fellow Albertans. In no uncertain terms, removing local dispatch will be not just the death of integrated emergency dispatch, it will be the death of local integrated emergency response in our province. We cannot effectively coordinate emergency response without integrated dispatch. This decision affects every Albertan today, but my challenge for all Albertans to think about is what is AHS's ultimate endgame. Past conduct is a strong indicator of future conduct. And my informed speculation, and I certainly hope that I am wrong, is that removing local dispatch is only the beginning. Consolidating dispatch, from my perspective, signals that AHS is on a likely path to seize ambulance partnerships with cities altogether. Albertans should be on very acute notice that AHS has taken a first step towards shifting what was once an integrated, advanced life support model to a siloed basic life support model. Mayors of communities all across this province who are a part of previous consolidations have gone on public record indicating that they experienced immediate degradation of emergency services in their communities, even though AHS promised otherwise. They said that they should have fought harder on previous consolidations. Minister Shandro is aware that we are briefing his colleagues on this matter on Thursday. And in our view, it is undemocratic for a decision to be made before elected colleagues are fully briefed on the impacts of their constituents. Every politician over the course of his or her career needs to make a personal choice whether he or she will serve ideology and plans on paper or serve the people. And with my colleagues, we choose to serve the public safety interests of the people that we represent. A plan that looks good on paper does not always translate into a common sense plan in the public interest. A borderless system, quote unquote, might make for a good soundbite. But mark my words, it marks the death of the integrated emergency response system that our Alberta was once respected for. Thank you, and I will now pass over to Mayor Nenshi for his remarks.
Well, thanks very much, Mayor Veer. Thank you all for being here today. I'm sure that many folks thought, after we received that Friday afternoon surprise letter, that, this is done and we're not going to be talking about it anymore. But no, we are going to continue to work on this because this truly is about the safety of our citizens. As Mayor Veer pointed out very eloquently, we were shocked and disappointed to get that letter because we thought we were still in the middle of a conversation. In fact, the City of Calgary has requested the actual data from AHS that they've been using to justify this decision for some weeks now. We received it on Monday after the minister had sent us his letter, and with a caveat that it could not be shared with the public. It could not be shared with the taxpayers who pay for it and who are served by it. So I'm hopeful that that was a misunderstanding and we will be able to share that data widely and broadly now that we finally have it. But I suspect they're nervous because it doesn't tell the story that they have been telling, which is that this will somehow improve patient outcomes when we know, and we have plenty of evidence that it will not. And by the way, if we're not able to share that publicly, I'll just point out that a Freedom of Information request only costs $25. I've never filled one out before, let alone on myself, but I'm happy to do it if that's what it takes for the public to see all of this information. So despite this, and despite that evidence, despite the fact that multiple previous ministers have made this move, Minister Shandro and AHS have said they're going to move forward with this for the only reason that they talked about it 11 years ago. And so there got to be a better reason than that, given that our plans from 11 months ago are no longer valid, let alone 11 years ago. But it is actually very troubling because what it shows is that Alberta Health Services and Minister Shandro don't see the value of people that don't work for them. In fact, Minister Shandro went so far in his letter as to call them redundants, to call public service people who work hard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who answer the phone when you're making the most difficult phone call of your life, redundants. What we know, as Mayor Veer pointed out, is that firefighters offer life-saving services. They save people's lives every day. And they get there first in half of the calls. And the evidence that Minister Shandro and AHS depend upon only looks at ambulances. It doesn't look at firefighters who often save people's lives before the ambulance can get there. It is very clear that they're relying on poor evidence. So I'll give you an example. The only analysis that has been done of this was in 2013 by the Alberta Quality Council. And if you read that report carefully, and I have, you will see that that report actually does not say that response times will stay the same or will reduce. In fact, it's only able to find one study that looks at a before and after system of consolidated dispatch. And in those cases, response times increase significantly. It does go on and on and on about how, yeah, response times aren't really that important. Mortality is not really that impacted, as though that were the only thing that matters to people who desperately need help at this moment. So it's very clear to me that this is not a decision based on patient outcomes, because there's no evidence that patient outcomes will improve. The only thing we've heard is somehow having physicians coordinate with EMS is a good thing, but that's certainly something that can happen under today's system. It doesn't require an expensive separate EMS center in a rental building with a very expensive lease to make that happen. If you want to reform the system, we can reform the system by building on what's the best of it, not on destroying it and replacing it with something that is not as good. Clearly not a decision based on patient outcomes, patient safety, or what is right for the people of Alberta. So we're appealing to the Premier now, because it's clear Minister Chandra is not interested in the conversation. He's not interested in working with us any further on this. And we hope that the Premier will step up to protect patients in this province. With that, I will turn it over. I have Mayor Scott written down, but it might be Mayor Spearman I'm turning it over to. Let's go with Mayor Scott.
Well, thanks very much. Always a hard act to follow, but I just want to mention before I get going that if you want to dismantle a strong healthcare system, this is exactly how you start it. And we're very, very disappointed in this. So Minister Chandra has made a decision based on ideology, not intellect. This decision directly threatens the health and safety of Wood Buffalo residents and the residents, as you've just heard, of Albertans. Our region is larger than the province of Nova Scotia. The next closest ambulance is 3.5 hours away. The reason that's important is because consolidation will restrict our ability to send an additional ambulance when our 4 ambulance units are on medical calls. Consolidation will mean that AHS sends an ambulance from Lac La Biche as opposed to our fire hall, which is just minutes away. We consistently dispatch an ambulance faster than AHS. We dispatch an ambulance 48 seconds faster than AHS 90% of the time. We verify addresses almost 30 seconds faster than AHS. We can dispatch units in less than half the time it takes AHS. Minister Chandra is cherry picking the data to support the case for consolidation. Why is he ignoring the data from our regions? We have been asking for AHS to release their data for our region, but they have only released the Calgary data. They are choosing not to release the data of integrated services. AHS admitted in our meeting that the consolidation plan was from 11 years ago. As you've just heard, I can't think of any 11-year plan, let alone an 11-month plan for healthcare that is still relevant. In his October 16th letter, Minister Chandra stated that there will be no impacts to our mutual aid agreements with our oil sands industry partners. He also stated his commitment to improving dispatch of ambulance to our remote, rural, and First Nation communities. These mutual aid agreements directly impact patient outcomes of the employees at our oil sands sites and the residents of our neighboring remote First Nations and Métis communities. I am calling on Minister Chandra to release the details of exactly how he guarantees that our mutual aid agreements and neighboring First Nations and Métis communities will not be impacted. There has been no evidence of this guarantee to date, and I fail to understand how he can make this guarantee. We have heard loud and clear from our First Nation and Métis leadership that they too do not support consolidation. In our meeting with Minister Chandra on September 24th, he started off the meeting by assuring the 4 mayors that the consolidation of dispatch had nothing to do with money or cost savings. He stated, "Money is not a consideration of this government when it comes to response times." Hours later, in his statement released to media, he said consolidation would save money, which would be reinvested in the healthcare system. Minister Chandra continues to send mixed messages. Is it about the money or not? I believe it should be about patient health and patient outcomes. We are urgently requesting the attention of the Premier and the rest of Cabinet and caucus on this matter. This approach was overturned 4 previous times by 4 previous health ministers for a good reason. It is simply wrong to stay silent and ignore this issue. This decision will cost lives, and that is completely unacceptable. Over to you, Mayor.
Thank you. This is Mayor Chris Spearman from the City of Lethbridge. I'm going to appeal to the Premier and to the citizens of Alberta, to the MLAs and to the Cabinet. As municipalities, we believe that the goals of both the municipalities and the provincial government are the same. We want the best possible patient outcomes too. We want financial efficiencies, and we want operational efficiencies, and we believe that we are providing them. Collectively, our municipalities have extensive experience providing EMS dispatch that results in excellent patient outcomes. After just 16 months in office, Minister Shandro has decided to throw all of that away without any consultation with municipalities. We continually asked for rationale or data to support the minister's choice, and this was never provided prior to receiving his letter last week. The lack of transparency confirms that this is a short-sighted and reckless decision. Health ministers before him, when presented with the facts, have made the best choice for health and safety of our residents and kept integrated municipal dispatch. Now I want to talk about health services reviews. The Rural Health Services Review from March 2015 on EMS started out like this: dissatisfaction, frustration, and anger with the current state of rural EMS was one of the most common concerns expressed by dozens of communities. I can tell you that 5 years later, nothing has changed. The municipality of Foothills has provided an 18-page letter as of May of this year detailing failures with EMS dispatch. Before any other communities are drawn into consolidation, those issues must be addressed by this minister and by this government. So the report of 2015 shone a glaring light on the failures with EMS dispatch consolidation. Overall, most rural Albertans perceived a marked deterioration of EMS and blamed the consolidation of EMS dispatch centers and EMS management. They explained this has resulted in less responsive, frequently unavailable, and poorly coordinated services. Foothills MD confirms that that's still the case. Again, we asked the government of Alberta why they would want to continue down a path that has proven to deteriorate emergency services in our province. I now want to address the issue of costs. In addition to the negative patient outcomes, in Lethbridge alone, we are estimating that this decision will increase our costs by over $5 million in annual expenses as a direct consequence of the dispatch transition. This includes 30 new positions needed in our fire response to maintain the existing level of service that we're able to provide with our current, efficient, fully integrated system. I'm sure everyone can agree that it would be detrimental to incur a massive cost such as this on municipalities like Lethbridge, Red Deer, Wood Buffalo, and Calgary, and ultimately on taxpayers, particularly during a global pandemic and economic crisis. For the provincial government to make this decision for what we believe will be zero benefit, if not negative impact to Albertans, is extremely frustrating. I would like to welcome and call for a third-party review of the net financial and emergency response benefits for this change that consults not only with AHS, but also with the municipalities that currently provide the service. That would provide a fair and balanced evaluation of the impact of this change. Again, Mr. Premier, Albertans, government MLAs, all MLAs, this is a nonpartisan issue. I'd like to repeat, we believe the goals of the municipalities and the provincial government are the same. The best possible patient outcomes, financial efficiencies, operational efficiencies. As municipalities, We want to hold out an olive branch. We want to work together with the province to make these goals a reality. That is why we are urging you, Mr. Kenny, Premier Kenny, please step in and gather the information needed to make a good decision on this life-saving matter. Thank you.
Provide some concluding remarks on behalf of the mayors, and then we're happy to take any questions that media, either in person or on the online system, have. So as a final note, on behalf of the City of Red Deer, the City of Calgary, the City of Lethbridge, and the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, as well as the regions that we serve, and our fellow Albertans across the province, whether you are in our regions or not, this issue affects every Albertan. And we appeal to our Premier to let common sense prevail and to overturn this irresponsible decision. We appeal to our fellow Albertans to write, to call, to email, to speak to the Premier and to your local elected official to compel the province to please stop playing roulette once and for all in this life and death circumstance. Thank you. We'll take your questions.
So we'll start by taking some questions here in Red Deer, and then we will shift into the virtual platform, as we know we have some media who are joining us there as well. So we'll look to our local Red Deer media and to start.
How legitimate were the consultations with municipalities before this decision was made, in your opinion?
Okay, so the question is, how legitimate were the consultations? So there really was no consultation. I will say that this is, as we noted in our remarks, this is an 11-year-old plan that the provincial government is still trying to implement, even though plans that, as Mayor Scott outlined, plans that we had a year ago are out the window in response to the global pandemic. There was no consultation in terms of this time around specifically. The timeline that we released a few weeks ago demonstrates our very reasonable, consistent, good faith attempts to engage both with the Minister of Health and with AHS. And, you know, the minister was very clear in his letter that, you know, consultation doesn't mean a veto, but in our respectful attempt to govern in relationship with the province, given our presumed same goals for patient outcomes, we were very surprised and disappointed with the lack of consultation. The Minister of Health did promise us in the spring, once he was made aware that AHS had not consulted us. There was no municipal consultation in the Ernst & Young report. There was no actual grounding in fact, other than that it would potentially save money in the Ernst & Young report that they're apparently making this decision based on. I will say, in fairness, in the meeting in late September, you know, the Minister of Health and the Minister of Municipal Affairs, they did give us time to go through our presentation. We had a meaningful, what we thought was a meaningful discussion. The takeaway was that Minister Shandro would contact us if he had any questions. In the meantime, we've been preparing supplementary information to submit to the province. We've been awaiting supplementary information from Alberta Health Services. We have a meeting scheduled Thursday with some provincial elected MLAs in the province. So as Mayor Nenshi noted, we really did think that we were still engaging. With the province on this life and death issue. And then just as a final point, the mayors actually found out there was the media report came out Friday afternoon. We saw the link online. Obviously, there was an embargoed report, an embargoed copy of the letter that was sent out. We read it in the media Friday afternoon around 2:15. An email had come to us with the letter at 2:10. So we were essentially notified by the media. So that's a very long answer, but the short answer is we were not consulted, we were not engaged, even though the public record that we can demonstrate was that we made every effort to engage in good faith. and to try to govern in relationship in the interests of the people we serve.
Mayor, with Thursday's meeting and the calls to the Premier, if those steps don't go anywhere, what's the next step, or what can you guys do beyond that if those things don't progress or help?
We've often gone on record saying that we've endeavored to engage in good faith. And, you know, I'm a firm believer in giving people the information that they need to do the right thing on their own accord. Obviously, at some point, we have made it very clear that we're resolute in this. This is not about partisanship. This is not about the fact that the only fact that this is about is that it's life and death. And so AHS has said that they're flicking the switch on January 4th. We will continue to fight it in whatever recourse that we have available. The Premier obviously is the leader of government, and you know, Alberta's chief elected official does have the power and authority to bring this to the cabinet table, and that is our hope and expectation. That he would let common sense prevail and bring it to the cabinet table. We'll continue to brief every MLA in the province so that they know the actual impacts that this issue has on their citizens. And we'll just continue to regroup and revisit along every step of the way the recourse that we have available to it. So it's difficult to speculate. But Minister Chandros made it very clear he's not overturning. So now we appeal to the common sense of the Premier.
So I think at this time we're actually going to go to the questions
okay.
Through the virtual platform. So if you can raise your hand through that platform to notify us that you are seeking to ask a question, that would be very helpful. So we're going to go to a question from Global News Calgary. You have a question, Global?
Yeah, I guess Mayor Nenshi, I just have a question for you. What's next in this situation? We're hearing that the chief paramedic's going to be in Calgary speaking to you guys on November 2nd. So what do you expect from that conversation?
Yes, late breaking news that he has accepted our invitation to come to council. So we're going to put him into that very crowded meeting on November 2nd. And I expect that council members will have a lot of tough questions for him and really will ask him to justify his decision based on evidence and data, which he to date has not been able to do. Do you have a follow-up?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, have you heard much from the Premier on this topic so far? I mean, you guys are calling out to the Premier to step in. Have you heard anything from him regarding this topic?
I have raised this with the Premier, as the other mayors have, on numerous occasions, and it was part of the meeting that I had with him 2 weeks ago in Edmonton, which ended with him saying that, you know, he doesn't know the details of every file in his portfolio, as no one would expect him to, but he would look at what we had brought forward and give us some input and follow up with any other questions. But instead, we got a Friday afternoon letter from the minister.
Thank you, Global. We will go to Madeline Smith with the Calgary Herald. Madeline, do you have a question for us?
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Madeline.
Perfect. Hi, my question is also for Mayor Nenshi. Mayor, could you please just explain what data you had asked for from the province, what you received yesterday, as much as you're able to tell us that, and why exactly it cannot be made public?
Great questions. I can answer the first one. The first one was, we asked them for their historical data on response times for Calgary, but also for areas that they consolidated in 2009, so that we could see if response times had gone down or up. We received a lot of data. I'm not at liberty to talk about it, partly because I haven't gone through it, but also partly because it's not clear that they gave it to us with the ability to share it. some of that data we had already for the city of Calgary, of course, because it lives in our systems, but under our contract with AHS, we couldn't release it publicly. So we did receive a letter from Chief Sandbeck accepting our invitation to speak at council. And then with a very puzzling sentence at the end that said, let's have a conversation about whether that data can be shared. Now, this is something we asked for a month ago. It obviously came to us after the minister sent us his letter because it wasn't meant to be used as part of our argument. And then to also say, and we don't know if you can share it, is the height of bizarre. So as I said, if by the end of this week, AHS has not given us permission to share it, I'm filing a Freedom of Information request for data I've already got because the public deserves to see it.
Madeline, do you have a follow-up?
Nope, that's it for me. Thank you.
We don't see any additional questions through the virtual platform. I am going to move back to Red Deer News now. Sheldon Spackman has an additional question for you.
Thank you, Mayor Beer. How would you describe your level of optimism in the Premier to change this decision?
Well, here's what I'll say. I was a part of the advocacy on behalf of our city in, I might not get the years right, so it was 2009, 2012, 2013, 2014, whichever the specific years were. So anyway, the past 4 interventions was on city council, took an active part in the file in that advocacy. And every single time we set out for that advocacy, there were individuals who said it's not possible. They've made up their mind. The AHS has their plan for this quote unquote borderless system, and that's what they're intent to do. So, you know, there were people along the way who always said we need to give it our best effort because it truly is the life and death issue. And then there were those who said it's not even possible to convince them otherwise on this. And in every one of those examples, the Minister of Health overturned. Once they saw the facts, this is fact-based, this is not feeling-based, this is fact-based. Once the minister saw the full spectrum of information and the importance of integration, not just from a systems efficiency perspective, from a financial or time perspective, but from a patient outcome perspective, every single minister serving under different governments, different premiers, saw the wisdom in overturning. Minister Shandro made it clear in his letter that he feels that this is the time to pursue an 11-year-old plan. But I'm a firm believer in giving people the chance to do the right thing of their own accord. And so that we appeal to the Premier. The Premier has said that he believes in working with municipalities. He has come to our caucus to say that he believes in working with municipalities to make sure the effective delivery of local service. And we expect this in the interests of Albertans. He's also made it clear that, you know, he believes in working with his colleagues in cabinet governments. And so we need to give him the opportunity now to do the right thing. And I'm a firm believer that when you're on the side of right, you keep trying and you keep pursuing it. And that's what that's what we intend to do.
We have a question from Tom Ross with 660 News. Tom, do you have a question for us?
Yes, thanks a lot. I guess this is for all the mayors, because I know in Calgary, there was mention of 911 dispatchers here losing their jobs by removing the EMS dispatch. So can the mayors kind of quantify if there are job losses tied to this and how many?
So I can lead off on that, Tom, if that's okay with you, and then I'll pivot to Mayor Nenshi, Mayor Scott, and Mayor Spearman. So when you look at the Ernst & Young report, the anticipated layoffs in Red Deer would be 10 layoffs in Red Deer. And then because then our calls would be routed to the South Center. I can't speak to what the layoffs in the other centers would be, but then HS has said they'll hire 25 for the South Center. And that's where they anticipate the cost savings, and I put air quotes around cost savings because that's not cost savings for the system as a whole, but that's where they're anticipating the direct cost savings. Our challenge with that, and this is why this is an issue for every Albertan, because of the removal of the local satellite system. So essentially taking Alberta of a system of 7 dispatch centers down to 3, even though they will incrementally hire 25 more dispatchers elsewhere. When you think about emergencies in our province, there's technical failure. There's times where there's province-wide incidents that affect emergency responders in the province. Pandemics, Calgary floods, Fort McMurray fires, where all of a sudden, even just a normal August weekend, where all of a sudden there's an influx of calls. And that is the point that we have made around, as a province, we've been trying to build capacity in the healthcare system and flatten the curve for COVID. It makes no sense to do the exact inverse with respect to emergency response and all of a sudden upload 200,000 calls to call centers, 3 call centers that don't even meet their own standards. So short answer, 10 layoffs in Red Deer, and then I'll defer to my colleagues with those layoffs, but HS intends to replace all of the layoffs in our municipalities by replacing them with 25 at HS. We'll start with Mayor Nenshi.
Yeah, so in the case of Calgary, the first estimate is about 45 jobs lost. Of course, we're going to do everything we can to accommodate people and to avoid layoffs, because the last thing we need during a pandemic with double-digit unemployment is to ruin the futures of 45 more families.
Mayor Scott?
Yeah, for our region, it's 4 jobs in our region, and it's at such a huge cost. As I said, you know, we dispatch an ambulance 48 seconds faster than AHS 90% of the time. And the immediate cost is that, I believe. 4 jobs is a huge cost, but that is a cost that's completely unacceptable. The previous cost that I described, the failure of AHS to meet their own standard, and the fact that we're going to get a worse service in our region, as are my colleagues, I believe.
Mayor Spearman?
The job losses in Lethbridge would be 10 as well. Again, the issue for us is the transparency, and I share Mayor Scott's concern about the deterioration in service. We're very proud of the service that we offer in the city of Lethbridge. We're about 30 seconds faster right now than consolidated EMS, and we want to maintain that level of service. To Mayor Nenshi's point, do Albertans and does the Premier of Alberta want to go to a consolidated system that doesn't want to be accountable? This is an organization that has refused to share their data publicly. We need to have services that are publicly accountable. We would like to continue the existing services and have all the data shared about consolidated dispatch response versus the satellite dispatch response, and Albertans should have all that information before the government makes the decision. So there are other challenges that need to be addressed and have been stalled since the 2015 report that I referred to previously. Things like interfacility transfers. Sometimes half of our ambulances are tied up on interfacility transfers. That really risks the lives of citizens, and it's really important to have an integrated service to cover that. If the province of Alberta would address the issue of interfacility transfers so that our ambulances weren't tied up, half of our ambulances tied up on interfacility transfers, that would be a much better approach to take. So 1, we need to have a transparent system that's accountable to Albertans. And 2, let's address the real problems and the real bottlenecks in the system.
Any follow-ups, Tom?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and for your time. Appreciate it.